I hope today finds you plausibly well and feeling splendulous. Now, here's a question. What are we doing today? We have been sitting around fires telling stories for thousands of years. It was one of the earliest ways of communication between our own tribe and betwixt society. For the last year or so, I have been making illustrations on old stories. The playlist is up here. They might have been bounced around and changed a little bit over time, but they still have a really important message. This week's message is don't steal other people's stuff, or they may try to eat you. Yes, it's Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Rah! As usual, I'll be colouring this with watercolour paint and watercolour pencils for some of the details and also to highlight some of the colours. I really love my set, which I've had for over 30 years, although I have bought some new pans to replace the old ones as they wear out. But I've also bought some tubes of watercolour paint, as I find it gives a much more vivid colour. The story was first written by Englishman Robert Southey in 1837. His story involved a bad-tempered, foul-mouthed old woman who was a disgrace to her family. They sent her out into the woods because they were so fed up with her. She stumbled across a cottage owned by 3 good-natured and harmless man-bears who happened to have stepped out for a breath of fresh air while their porridge cools. You can see where this is going, can't you? The original story was a bit macabre and terrifying for children, and it began to morph into the story we know today. The old lady was made into a little girl, and she was first called Goldilocks in 1904, and this is where we will start the story. There was once a little girl called Goldilocks. She was a pretty little thing with long hair the colour of sunshine and newly churned butter. Despite her parents telling her not to, Goldilocks decided to take herself off for a walk in the forest. It was a hot day and the trees provided lots of shade. It was so inviting. She hadn't gone very far until she realised that she was lost. Now, Goldilocks was a resilient sort of girl, and she wasn't scared. She knew that eventually she must come across something that she recognised that would take her back home. But she didn't see anything familiar. After some time trying to find the path home, Goldilocks came across a little cottage. Thank goodness, she thought, perhaps someone can help me. She knocked at the door. No one answered, so she pushed the door open. What she didn't know is that the cottage was owned by a family of bears: Daddy Bear, Mummy Bear, and Baby Bear. Before Goldilocks had arrived, the bears had been making porridge and had popped out into the forest to gather some berries to go on top. Goldilocks stepped into the cottage and noticed the 3 bowls of porridge on the table. She suddenly realised how very hungry she was. She'd been away from home for some hours. The porridge looked so delicious, and there was a big pot of honey on the table. I don't suppose anyone would mind if I had a tiny bit, she said. She took a taste from the big bowl. Oh dear, she said, this porridge is too hot. So she moved on to the next one, the medium bowl. Oh no, she said, this porridge is too cold. Blech. She saw the little blue bowl at the end of the table. Oh, yummy, she said. This one is just right. And she ate it all up. When she had finished, she wandered around the house, being nosy and looking at all the lovely things in the little house. There were 3 chairs in the sitting room, a big one, a medium one, and a little one. Goldilocks sat down on the first one. "Oh dear," she said, "this chair is too hard." So she moved on to the next chair, which was a little smaller. "Oh no," she said, "this chair is too soft." She saw the little blue chair and sat down on it. "Ah, yes," she said, "this one is just right." But just as she said that, the chair broke into 2. She was much too heavy for it. She went upstairs to see what was up there. In the big bedroom there were 3 beds, and they all looked comfy, especially as she was feeling very tired after all the excitement and now with a full belly. Goldilocks lay down on the first bed, the biggest one. "Oh dear," she said, "this bed is too hard." So she rolled onto the next bed. "Oh dear," she said, "this bed is too soft." Then she saw the little blue bed and flopped down onto it. "Ah, yes," she said, "this one is just right." And she fell straight asleep. Meanwhile, the bears had found some berries and were making their way back to their home. Entering the kitchen, Daddy Bear looked at his bowl of porridge, the spoon sticking out of it. "Someone's been eating my porridge," he said. Mummy Bear noticed that something was wrong with her bowl too. "Someone's been eating my porridge too," she said. "Someone's been eating my porridge," said Baby Bear, "and they've eaten it all up." Daddy Bear went into the sitting room. He could see that something was not right. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," he said. Mummy Bear noticed that something was wrong with her chair too. "Someone's been sitting in my chair too," she said. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said Baby Bear, "and they've broken it to bits." Now very suspicious, Daddy Bear went upstairs. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," he said. Mummy Bear noticed that something was wrong with her bed too. "Someone has been sleeping in my bed too," she said. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said Baby Bear. "And look, they are still there." Goldilocks awoke with a start to find 3 bears standing over her. It gave her such a jump that she leapt out of Baby Bear's bed, tore down the stairs and out of the front door. Nobody knows quite what happened to Goldilocks. The bears never saw her again. But I like to think that she found her way home and learnt her lesson. Here are the lessons. Number 1, don't go wandering about in forests if you're a very little person. Number 2, don't break into houses and eat porridge off the table. Number 3, if you break something, own up to it before it becomes a big problem. And number 4, don't sleep in other people's beds unless you have asked them or have a previous agreement.
If you'd like further artist tutorials, I have a variety of short courses that will help you. There are real-time sessions looking at painting, drawing and marker pens, among others. And if you're keen on producing your own book, there is a more in-depth course on what you need to know about self-publishing a book with illustrations. That covers making key decisions, how to make layouts and dummy books, rhythm and pacing, as well as several tutorials on illustrating a book and a look at the tech. You can either hop over to my website or join me on Patreon for more information. Go on, give it a go!
Next week I'll be doing another one of these stories. It's The Tortoise and the Hare. If you want to see my playlist on tutorials, it's over here. There are loads of things on all sorts of things that you can draw. I love doing the drawing videos, so if you like them too, give them a thumbs up and share them with your world. I'm off to go all tortoise on my family and see who does the washing up first. It'll be me. I will see you next week. Nanu nanu.